Welcome to Pale Blue Pod, the astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but want to be its friend.
Hell yeah, that's us. Hi, I'm Dr. Moiya McTier. I'm an astrophysicist, a folklorist, and a friend to the universe.
It's true.
And a friend to...
A friend to me, Corinne. I'm Corinne Caputo. I'm a writer and a fun person, and I'm thrilled to be here with my friend Moiya and my friend the universe. And we're at a wine bar today, which is one of the best places to be.
It smells really nice. Do you have like a go-to order? Are you a red or white or rosé person?
I'm a red person. And I feel like most of my friends are white, which... Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so insane.
For those of you keeping track at home, it's now 0 days again since Corinne has made me cry with laughter.
Okay, well, most of my friends drink white wine.
Got it. I feel like most of my friends drink rosé.
I don't like rosé or white wine. I get headaches. Honestly, I'm a cocktail person. I just like to come to a wine bar for the vibe.
It's a great vibe.
It's like we're going to get a glass of wine and we're going to get a cheese board.
I mean, I don't really drink, so I'm over here with my Sprite. Okay,
actually, Sprite is such a good drink to get.
It is, because no one knows. They can't tell what it is. So I am here for vibes and also just to dress up and be in this nice Italian wine bar atmosphere while we're discussing a classic Italian man.
One of the most famous Italians.
I think
there's Mario
so.
and Luigi, and there's Galileo.
Yes, you're right. We're talking about Galileo. I think at one point we did say that we wouldn't make an episode about Galileo. And then I wrote a whole book chapter about Galileo, and I wanted to share some of the things that I learned. But how do you feel he ranks in terms of notoriety? Because I did kind of write this whole chapter based on the foundational argument that he was one of the most famous scientists of all time. That he's one of the first geniuses. Okay,
I agree. I think his name itself is like one of the most famous, or like the most famous name, just in terms of cultural references. I feel like every show or something has some reference of like calling someone a Galileo, or like just maybe not. Maybe it's not in every show, but I do think people like know it as a word where you can use it as an adjective or like as a name or a category of something. So he's like surpassed his own, I don't know, inventions and creations.
You're right. Yeah, because he's more than a household name. Like, he's an archetype.
Yes,
now,
exactly.
I think. And also one of the few famous people that we call by their first name.
Yes.
Like, we're all on a first name basis with Galileo Galilei. He had like a very long, like a long Italian name, like Galileo Vincenzo something Galilei.
I was looking this up because I was like, there's got to be some story here about his name. And they didn't really use surnames at this point in history. So he never needed it because his first name suggested the family he was from.
Oh. So we're just projecting our modern need for a first and last name onto him.
Yes,
when
exactly.
He would have been like, y'all, it's redundant.
Yes, exactly.
Like, that's why. But is that why they called him Galileo, so that he wouldn't have to use his last name? Were they anticipating him being famous, like Madonna or Cher?
Yeah, he became mononymous. I feel like
the word.
That's just what they use on another podcast I listen to. So
I love
just assume
that.
It's a word. I don't know. I feel like surnames across the board were not really used. Cool. And his siblings, he's a sibling named Michelangelo.
Not the Michelangelo.
Not the Michelangelo. Okay. Imagine.
Okay, cool. That would have been quite the family.
I know. One of the most famous families.
Yeah.
Nepo babies. But who's Nepo baby at that point?
For sure. All right. So we, like always, have kind of split this up. So Corinne is going to handle Galileo's life before he was the great Galileo, doing his science stuff on his science shit. And then I'll cover the science. So what was his life like?
So I'll tell you a little bit. And it turns out history is way more interested in what he did as a grown-up than what he was up to as a kid. So I'll tell you what I could find.
Cool.
But he was born in Pisa, Italy, Feb 15th, 1564. He is an Aquarius, like we mentioned in our April Fool's Ep. He was the oldest son of Vincenzo Galilei, who was a musician and a wool trader.
A rule trader?
Wool.
Wool.
Maybe I said that crazy. Wool, as in sheep.
Did they have their own sheep, or was he like getting from a supplier, and was he like
That's a
the
good
middle
question.
wool man? Okay.
I don't know. Modern day, I imagine he'd be a middleman because we all are. But I don't know. I think his work in the music industry at the time was way more popular. Okay. Wikipedia said he made important contributions to the theory and practice of music. And he may have performed some experiments with Galileo in the relationship between pitch and the tension of strings on instruments.
Oh, I love when scientists get interested in science through art.
Yeah.
Like as young kids. That's nice.
It's very cool. And Galileo spent his childhood in Pisa till his family moved to Florence when he was about 8, but he didn't join them until he was about 10. And Florence is where the family had lived for generations, so it's kind of like this return home. But he was like with a like caretaker until he went over there and joined them a few years later. Mm-hmm. He had 5 siblings. 3 of them survived through infancy. And the youngest, Michelangelo, also became a lutenist and composer.
Keep it in the family, the musical family.
Exactly. Took after his father. He apparently added to Galileo's financial burdens for the rest of his life.
Yes. Yes. I read about that. Mm-hmm.
I do feel like this is a classic family dynamic of like there's one brother, and in this case it is the artist brother, who just really comes asking for money, and I get it. Mm-hmm. Michelangelo would occasionally borrow funds from Galileo to support his musical endeavors and excursions. And the financial burdens may have contributed to Galileo's early desire to like develop inventions that would bring him more money, which I think is so relatable to like, I don't know about you, but my Instagram algorithm is like all these people making passive income, quote unquote. Like obviously they're not doing that. They're in some kind of MLM, but the desire for more money is so relatable and clearly this ancient societal failure that we've had. But as a teen, Galileo attended the monastery school near Florence, and he was sent to the University of Pisa to study medicine. Although apparently he seriously considered priesthood before enrolling.
Yeah, so his dad died when he was youngish, right?
Yes.
And then he went to live with an uncle who worked with the church, and I think it was expected kind of that Galileo would do something similar. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was at the University of Pisa that he found his interest in mathematics and decided to make his future within math and science without his family's consent, which is a tale, as all this time again, of your parents want you to be a doctor, or your family wants you to be a doctor, and you say no.
But do you know why he got interested in math and astronomy while he was in medical school?
Ooh, tell me. I think I might have it in here somewhere, but you go first.
It's because ancient medical school included astronomy or astrology because there was medical astrology. Like there were certain medical practices that you were supposed to do under certain constellations or moon phases or whatever. So medical doctors had to learn about space up until like the 1700s.
Gosh. That's so wild. Like the medical medium or someone. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so up to this point, Galileo had been deliberately kept away from math since a physician earned a higher income than a mathematician. However, Wikipedia said that he accidentally attended a lecture on geometry, and he talked to his like reluctant some mentor in his life into letting him study math instead of medicine, and he somehow like got to do it. And after years, he returned home to Florence with no doctor's degree. And one website said with, quote, no options.
No options.
It feels like that, like, what that quote, I think it's Pride and Prejudice, where she's like, I'm 27, I have no prospects and no...
and we're like, you're a baby.
Yeah.
At this point, he's like 18, 19. He's still
gotta
really
be
young.
so young. He also lived really long for someone in 1564, I think.
He died. He died in his late 70s, mid 70s. Yeah.
He started tutoring math to earn a living, which like puts him completely in. Yeah, I know. Even I was teaching, like when I was teaching STEM to kids, I'm like, this is how I'm going to make money, and it's not a lot. No. So now he's completely in the mathematical field, and he started reading like ancient Greek mathematicians and philosophers like Pythagoras and Archimedes. And this kind of inspired him to make his own discoveries, which is so funny to me because reading other people discovering something and then being like, I want to discover something. It feels very much like Kylie Jenner being like, this is going to be the year of realizing things. You're like, what does that mean?
That's probably how he thought.
But by the age of 22, he publishes his first book. He had designed a new form of hydrostatic balance for weighing small quantities and wrote a short, like, tricksy. It's called, well, translated to English, it's The Little Balance.
Oh, that's nice.
It's cute. And it's circulated, like, as a manuscript. And then he begins studies on motion, which he pursued, like, for 20 years after that. And the book kind of made him really famous. He was, at 25, this is where I'll let you come in, but he was invited to join the University of Pisa, and he taught as a math professor, and eventually had a famous clash with his colleagues.
Yeah, famously disliked. At the time, it was those ancient Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, whose works people either just got access to or they just got access to translations. And so people were kind of newly passionate about these ancient Greek philosophies, and Galileo didn't really agree with them. And I'll get into some of his experiments with that later. But in 1589, Galileo became a math professor at the University of Pisa. He started pushing against specific Aristotelian beliefs that heavy objects should fall faster than lighter ones, because Aristotle believed, he didn't know about gravity, he didn't realize about acceleration, and so he thought that the motion of things was due to force, some external force acting on it, or some inherent force due to its nature, which is true. That's good. But he was like, the piece of its nature that matters is its heaviness and its lightness. He thought that those were two separate things. And that if something had more heaviness, that it would fall more quickly because it would be drawn to the ground more strongly. And Galileo did some experiments, some actual physical experiments and some thought experiments, like the famous Pisa Tower, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, where there's this story that Galileo dropped like a feather and a bowling ball or something, like some type of heavy ball from the tower. I think a lot of historians think that that didn't necessarily happen. And that it was more of a thought experiment, but he was doing physical experiments with dropping things and timing them. It probably just didn't happen off the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And so he was working on a book called On Motion, where he was trying to describe the laws underpinning physical mechanics, but it never was officially published. But he did circulate it among colleagues and share it with people. In 1592, he became the chair of the math department, so big deal in academia, the chair of the department at the University of Padua. And he was doing lectures on math, lectures on mechanics, also researching mechanics, and he was inventing things, possibly to keep his younger brother and the rest of his family afloat. He invented like a water pump and made pretty good money on some of these patents. He started studying the tides, the ocean tides, and how they related to the moon, and he believed that it had to do with the motion of the Earth, which was a no-no, because in the theory at the time, the Earth was static at the center of the universe and other things moved around it. So this might have been kind of one of his very early interactions with Copernican theory, the dirty heliocentric model that would end up getting him into a lot of trouble. And Corinne, what is Galileo most famous for?
Probably saying that the sun is the center and we go around it.
That's one of the things. Although I'd say Copernicus is more famous for that.
Maybe I don't know. I've always associated Galileo with that.
Is there like an invention that you maybe associate with him?
Probably.
A very important tool for astronomy?
Well, the telescope.
The telescope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I think Galileo was obsessed with the sun?
He was. He was.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Oh, he did a lot. He was
so working too hard.
He was a multidisciplinary astronomer and mathematician. So a lot of people probably know Galileo as the inventor of the telescope, and that's not true. He did not invent the telescope.
No.
Well, okay. Here's there's a tricky thing here because a telescope is a really simple instrument. You can make it with just two pieces of glass arranged in a particular way. If you get fancy, you can put those two pieces of glass in a tube. And there was another person who kind of at least got the patent, he actually didn't get the patent, but he did get a very lucrative deal with the Dutch military to produce these looking glasses. His name was Hans Lippershey, and he stumbled upon the magnifying power of two lenses of glass working together. Galileo heard about a rumor. He heard a rumor about this Dutch guy, Hans Lippershey, in 1609. He gets a letter from a friend, I think a French friend, and it says, there's this new instrument that can make distant objects appear as if they're so close to you. And Galileo was in Venice at the time. Venice was a world leader in glassmaking. So they have glasses makers, like spectacle makers. They have lens makers. They have beautiful glass artisans who can craft anything you want. So if you are in one of the world's glass capitals and you've just heard that glass can make distant things seem near and you are obsessed with space, what you gonna do next? And so historians know that Galileo did not invent the looking glass, but he was one of the first people to take this instrument and point it up. He also didn't come up with the word telescope. He was calling it a perspiculum first, perspicillum at first. And other people were looking up at the sky around the same time, but he was one of the first to look up and kind of the first to write about what he saw, which is why he gets credit for this new invention, just because he used a newly invented tool in a new way. So that's 1609 that he hears about it, and then the rest of his life changes pretty quickly. Although you're saying that he was already quite famous by the time he was 25 because of this, the little
it made
balance.
Him popular enough to get work. I don't know if he was I don't know how popular he was in other circles.
Okay. Well, he's about to get a lot more famous. As soon as he looked up, he saw details that people had never seen before. He looked at the path of the Milky Way and realized that it's not one fluid stream, but it is, in fact, a lot of individual stars that we just can't see with our own eyes. He looked away from the Milky Way, like out towards, we call them the field stars, and saw more stars than he could see with his naked eye. So he realized that some stars are just dimmer than we can see. He looked at the moon and saw texture and surface and like craters on the moon, which was another...
That's very cool.
It's very cool, and it's another notch in Catholicism's argument because so many people believed that the celestial bodies had to be perfect and unmarred. So if you're seeing surface features, then that is wrong. So what else is wrong, right? He starts seeing the phases of some of the planets, like Venus and Mercury, and you only see phases of things if they're going around a source of light. Although there are some other potential scenarios where you could see phases of things, but not in the same way. And so Galileo starts observing the planets in this meticulous way because he can see them better. In the very beginning of 1610, on January 7th, is when he makes his really big finding. He sees 3 of Jupiter's moons, and he doesn't realize what they are. He calls them little planets, and little planets or little stars around Jupiter, which they were just starting to realize at the time, like was a planet. And he saw the 4th Galilean moon by January 15th. And then he observed the Jupiter system every night every night that there weren't clouds for almost 3 months straight. He didn't call them moons. The word moon wasn't applied to satellites of other planets until much later. But he wrote a paper about this where he was describing what he saw through the looking glass. He didn't call it a looking glass. What he saw through his perspiculum. And he named those 4 bright lights the Medicean stars because he was trying to appeal to a nobleman, a Grand Duke Cosimo de' Medici. I guess he was like, if I name these new lights after the Duke, then the Duke will give me money or hire me for some appointment.
It's a good plan.
Yeah,
It's a
flattery
good plan.
works. It is a good plan. It freaking worked. That paper that he published was called The Starry Messenger. That's what it is in English. In Latin or Italian, it's like Sidereus Nuncus something. But it's The Starry Messenger. And he didn't make any claims, any like explicit claims of heliocentrism in The Starry Messenger. He was just showing what he could see through the telescope. And at first people were really resistant, but the benefit of having this really easy piece of technology, this like easily reproducible technology, is that other people quickly started to see it themselves. And so they couldn't say that Galileo was crazy because other people were confirming what he saw. Like serious people, Johannes Kepler confirmed what he saw. At first there was this professor in Rome who made fun of Galileo, saying Jupiter's moons couldn't possibly exist. And the Roman professor said something like, first you would have to build moons and then the telescope would be able to see them. Like he just didn't believe it until he saw it himself. But other people did kind of soon after start to point out that it was inconsistent with scripture and with the belief of the church. And so that combination of really respected scientists confirming his results quite quickly and some musings among the religious community being like, hey, is this okay? That combination kind of ballooned Galileo to popularity. And by 1611, he was the talk of the town. Everyone knew Galileo's name. He was living in Padua at the time, because he was the chair of the math department there. And he was invited to Rome. He had several banquets thrown in his honor. He was invited to this like fancy academic society called the Lyncæan Academy, or the Lynx Academy. It's like one of Europe's oldest scientific like societies.
Clubs. Yeah.
Yeah, famous. He like rubs elbows with the Pope. He talks to a bunch of people high up in the Catholic Church, demonstrates how to take apart and put back together the telescope for them, just to show that he's not making it up. And he comes back from that trip to Rome kind of emboldened, because people are loving what he has to see. He does get an invitation from the Duke to come be his like court mathematician. And so he leaves Padua, he goes to Tuscany where the Duke is, and he continues to do his research. He sees the rings of Saturn for the first time in like July of 1612, I think, is when he goes to live with the Duke. And he didn't realize what they were at first. He thought that they were little companion planets, like two little bulbs on the side of Saturn. And then over the next couple months, he continued to see these bulbs, but always in different shapes. Like sometimes there was one, and sometimes there was nothing. Sometimes there was just a flat line. Yeah. And he was really confused.
I'm sure. I can't imagine being on the cusp of learning this stuff, because to me it's like so foundational and so obvious. I don't know.
But like, because Earth doesn't have rings, under no circumstance would it occur to me that another planet would have rings if I had not heard of Saturn already.
I would never ever think of that.
Not once. And so it was later, much later, that someone like saw through a better telescope that it was these rings changing orientation that made the vision change.
Hi, it's Corinne. I want to tell you about a new podcast you need to listen to. Crunchyroll presents The Anime Effect, explores anime and the way it shows up throughout our world. Hosts Nicholas Friedman, Lealec Murray, and Leah President discuss the latest in news, updates, and deep dives on the shows and pop culture you love. From breaking down the anime awards to analyzing Godzilla -1 to discussions with musicians like Yiji, stay up to date on the latest in anime with Crunchyroll Presents The Anime Effect. They have episodes on all sorts of things, and if you're a Studio Ghibli fan like me, there's a recent episode on The Boy and the Heron that you might love like I did. You can listen now wherever you get your podcasts. And I can't leave before I give a huge thank you to our patrons who support the show every single month. Thank you to our Sun-like stars, Lissa, Scott Reynolds, Ian O'Leary, Augustin, and Tom T, and our latest pre-main sequence star, Long Tone. You can support us, hear your name on the show, and make it to our Patreon star chart, all by supporting us on Patreon for just about $1 per episode. And if you sign up for an annual membership, you get a 13% discount. Find the star chart, Patreon info, and more at our website, palebluepod.com, or by going right to patreon.com/palebluepod. And if you can't support us financially, we still love you very much. No problem. You can review the show on whatever app you use and share the show with your friends. And before we get back to this show, Pale Blue Pod, I want to recommend another pod in the Multitude family. Spirits is a history and comedy podcast focused on everything folklore, mythology, and the occult, told through the lens of feminism, queerness, and modern adulthood. Every week, mythology buff Julia and her childhood best friend Amanda get together to learn about a different story from mythology and folklore over drinks. That's everything from the mythological origins of major franchises like Lord of the Rings and Wonder Woman, to modern urban legends, to a roundup of werewolf stories from around the world, and there are episodes that Moiya and I guest on. You can start listening to any of the 300 plus episodes they've released over the last 6 years. Whether you're here for analyses of mental health and mythology or creepy modern ghost stories, which I know I'm always here for, there's so much to enjoy. Dive in at spiritspodcast.com or search for Spirits wherever you download your podcasts. All right, back to the show.
So he sees the rings of Saturn. He sees the full phases of Venus for the first time. Like, he finally has enough observations that he has seen all of the full phases. And he was one of the first to see that, although there are scientists like Simon Marius and Thomas Harriot who say that they saw similar things at the same time, but they didn't publish it, probably because they were more religious and they didn't want to publish anything that kind of explicitly went against heliocentrism.
Yeah.
That's my commentary on top of it. That's me like assuming that's why they didn't do it. Because why not? Like, there's this culture of publishing your findings pretty quickly because Galileo is rushing to publish after he sees the moons around Jupiter. So if they saw it, why would they not publish it unless they felt like it was wrong somehow, or it would endanger them? And because he's seeing all of these things, Galileo, who was never... I don't want to say never, but I get the impression that he didn't firmly believe in geocentrism to begin with. He starts actually publicly defending Copernican heliocentrism, like lecturing, giving lectures on the system where the sun is at the center and the planets go around it. He's doing that for a few years before he gets warned in 1616 that, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this.
He gets a flag or whatever you get in soccer.
Yeah. 1616 is the year that Copernicus's book, which has a longer Italian or Latin name, but it's shortened to Revolutions. The book where he really lays out his heliocentric theory. It was published in something like 1543, 1563, sometime in the 1500s. And when it was published, it wasn't immediately censored by the church. It wasn't until 1616 that happened. And that's because the Copernicus book had a little preface added to it that said, this paper isn't saying how Copernicus actually believes the cosmos to be arranged. This is just a theory that matches observation. Copernicus didn't even write that little preface. A monk wrote it for him anonymously, so people assumed Copernicus wrote it and was kind of going back on heliocentric theory, so he didn't get in trouble at the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But then in 1616, Revolutions gets kind of taken off the list of approved books until it can be corrected, and heliocentrism is deemed heretical. And Galileo has a personal meeting with a cardinal, a high up in the Catholic Church, who personally warns him against publicly defending Copernican teaching, specifically the teaching that the sun sits at the center and that the earth goes around it. And I guess Galileo is a little turned off from the heliocentrism stuff, but he turns his attention to other things that still land him in hot water. So for a few years, he starts studying comets. And in 1623, he publishes a book or an essay. The English translation, the English title for it is The Assayer. I think in Italian, it's like Il Saggiatore or something. And it's mostly about comets. He's arguing that they are subluminary phenomenon, meaning they move between us and the moon, which is very against Aristotelian teachings because Aristotle was kind of obsessed with the universe being arranged according to composition, and there were only 5 elements. There was earth, air, fire, water, and then there was ether. But ether existed beyond the orbit of the moon. So that's what the sun was like fire, and the stars were like fire and ether between them. But comets look like stars. That's why we call them shooting stars.
Yeah.
And they supposedly should be made of the same stuff as stars. But if they exist between us and the moon, then they can't be made of that same stuff. And it was a big deal for Galileo to be pointing out that comets were closer than the moon. He also started pondering the nature of matter, and he started talking about particles, especially as they relate to taste and smell. So there's like a section in this essay where he's talking about when you eat something, you know, maybe the way that you taste and smell it is that these little particles like float up and then they fall down because they're heavier, and then that's how you taste it. And then the lighter ones will fall up and that's how you smell them. Like, whatever. Sure. But that was just a little bit too close to atomism for the church's taste. And I think we talked about atomism and like the evolution of the understanding of matter before. Atomism was, I don't know if it was officially heretical or if it was just kind of taboo, but you weren't supposed to talk about it. And so Galileo gets in a little bit more trouble with the church. But at the same time, in the same year, 1623, the Pope dies. And the new Pope, the person who's newly elected Pope, is one of Galileo's friends. And they kind of have a meeting where, I don't know if they actually have a meeting or if it's just a vibe that Galileo gets, but Galileo feels safe to go back to his earlier work. So he does. He spends almost 10 years working on this, but he's very sick. Galileo kind of has poor health throughout his life. While I was doing research for this chapter in the book, I found a paper that it's called Galileo as a Patient. It's by Fina and Basso from 2011, and it goes through his personal medical history. And he suffered through like hypertension, through hernias, through cardiac problems. He had a lot of health issues, but I do want to read from this paper because there's the story from when he was really young. He was 29. He got really sick at a kind of party with some of his friends who also got really sick. And I just need to read to you the description of how they may have caught this illness. The context here is that Galileo and some of his buds would occasionally gather at one of their friends' summer homes near Florence. And in the summer of 1593, when he was 29, he went on one of these visits, and they would often go into a room that was cooled because there wasn't AC, but the room was cooled because it was connected to a system of caves. All right, so that's the context. And the paper says, after luncheon, they had a rest in this room, wearing few or no clothes. And according to Viviani's account, while they were asleep, a servant opened the window that led to the system of caves. And whatever the exact story is, back to quoting, quote, whatever the exact story is, it is sure that when they awoke a few hours later, they were extremely ill, with high fever, cramps, chills, hemorrhages, intense headaches, and lethargy.
Oh my gosh.
All of them then suffered from permanent or temporary deafness.
No.
One of them died after 3 days. Another one 3 weeks later, still deaf. Galileo, who survived, was deaf in one ear.
Whoa.
So Galileo has a little naked nap with his buddies after lunch, and then
Goes
two
deaf.
of them die? What?
That's really wild.
I just had to share that.
That's gotta be some kind of like ancient STD or something.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's more to the story that we're not hearing. Viviani is holding some stuff back.
Give me all the notes.
Yeah, so, he has that happen to him when he's 29, and he suffers a few other health issues especially as he ages. I saw some letters from his friends in the last couple decades of Galileo's life where some of them express real concern. They're like, hey, bud, I'm worried about you. Like, maybe put down the wine and maybe stop sleeping with the ladies of the night. And, maybe take care of yourself and eat good food and don't just throw yourself in. Like, they were really concerned.
Sure.
So it takes him a while to work on his next big piece. But in 1632, he finally publishes the last big piece that gets him in trouble with the church. And the English translation for the title is A Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. And those two world systems are geocentrism and heliocentrism. The book is written as a fictional conversation, a fictional dialogue. I guess there are three of them, so not dialogue. Dialogue isn't just between two people, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So a fictional dialogue between three characters. This is etymology corner on Pale Blue Pod.
Two or more people.
Awesome, love it. These three characters... One of them believes in heliocentrism and is kind of like a very obvious supporter of Copernicus. Another one is a follower of Ptolemy and really favors the geocentric model, which is the prevailing consensus model at the time. And then there's a third kind of neutral party. And it takes place over a couple different days. They discuss the tides. They discuss phases of planets and things. And the geocentrist is called Simplicio.
I love that. That sounds like a startup.
It actually does.
It's like a new app.
But it should be what a TV show calls a startup that they know is stupid.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what happens here. Like, Galileo names this character Simplicio because he clearly doesn't agree with geocentrism. And also there might be something where the Pope identifies with Simplicio or something. Mm-hmm. And so people get mad. And Galileo is called to Rome for trial. He is all but too sick to travel. He has to have doctors come and check him. He ends up going a few months after he's actually called to Rome. And in June of 1633, after 4 different appearances in court, Galileo is sentenced on strong suspicion of heresy. His punishment... He's not punished to die because it's just a strong suspicion of heresy. So instead, he has to recant his teachings. He has to say that, he doesn't believe the earth goes around the sun. And then he's sentenced to house arrest, basically for the rest of his life. Yeah. So he goes back home. He shuffles around a little bit, but he ends up back home in Florence, probably, and he continues to do some of his work. Oh, I completely forgot to talk about his work with sunspots. He studied the sun and was one of the first people to say that spots are actually on the sun because he could see them moving and spinning around the edge of the sun, disappearing beyond the limb.
As the sun's moving.
Exactly, yeah. And that was another kind of heretical point because the sun was supposed to be perfect and at least it could move around the earth, but it wasn't supposed to rotate. Mm-hmm. And Galileo showed that it rotated. And so he continued to do stuff like that, studying the sun. In 1638, he published another book on mechanics. That was also the year that he went completely blind. Oh. So he lost his sight. A lot of people think that it's because of the way he studied the sun.
I was just going to ask, was he looking at the sun?
Not directly. At first, he would look at the sun just when it was very low on the horizon. So there was a lot of air between it and him. And then he figured out how to study sunspots by looking at the reflection of the sun instead of looking directly. Yeah, that's how we studied sunspots in my astronomy classes in college, is by reflecting it onto a sheet of paper. And then you can draw where the sunspots are so you can see them move over time.
Track it. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. So he goes completely blind in 1638 and he dies in 1642 and doesn't have a great burial because he was in exile and his daughter's dead and his wife's, I think, dead and doesn't really have a lot of people around. So that's how it ends. Oh, but he did not go blind because of the sun. He probably went blind because of glaucoma.
Oh,
or something.
okay.
Yeah.
But despite maybe dying without, like, notoriety or a great burial, he's so famous.
He's so famous because he was famous before he went to trial. His
Yeah.
trial made him even more famous.
Yeah.
And then his sentencing, even though he didn't get sentenced to death like other people had been in the past,
Yeah.
he was kind of turned into a martyr.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in a sense. And so all of those things together really hyped up his profile.
Wow.
I have a little game.
Yay, let's play.
It's true or false. It's true or false Renaissance period cosmological beliefs edition.
Yes. I love true or false because my odds are 50-50.
Yeah. So I have here 5 different statements about things that people believed about the universe back in the 15 to 1700s. And you have to tell me if that statement is true or false.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. First statement. Galileo thought that tides were caused by the Earth's motion around the sun, but that was deemed heretically ridiculous. True or false? Instead, people would have rather believed that the tides were caused by the sun blowing hot air on the ocean.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
Just a gentle little breeze.
I think I'm going to say true. I think that they did think that it's probably the sun blowing on us.
That is true.
Oh, yay.
That is a belief that comes to us from Aristotle. Thanks, Aristotle.
Thanks, Aristotle.
Now we know that that is not true. Tides are caused by gravitational interactions between the moon and the earth and the sun, sometimes. Okay, next statement. True or false? Tycho Brahe believed that the plague outbreak in London in 1563 was caused by Mars and Venus both being in retrograde.
Whoa. I want to say true.
It is false. Although I picked those because Mars and Venus, as we heard in our April Fool's episode, these are planets that are associated with some body features like a fever or your blood, and so those are plague things. It's false. He actually believed that the plague was caused by a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn.
Ah, okay. Still blaming it on the planets. I get it.
Still blamed it on the planets, but just a different behavior. Okay, statement 3. True or false? Galileo was the first person to observe the phases of Venus.
I want to say false. I don't think he saw Venus first.
You are right. That is false.
Oh, yay.
I don't think I said this earlier just because I got excited, but I don't think I meant to, because I gave the answer away. So yeah, he wasn't the first to see it. He wasn't even the first to observe it through a telescope, because you can see these with your naked eye. But Thomas Harriot and Simon Marius both claim to have seen the phases of Venus through telescopes. They just didn't publish about it. The ancients did observe it, and Ptolemy, who is this old Greek mathematician and philosopher, he rationalized it by saying that Venus could have phases that we see if it orbited in a circle between us and the sun. Like if its full orbit was not around Earth, but between us and the sun. But it would have different looking phases. And so the contribution that Galileo made was by observing enough of the phases to disprove Ptolemy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Get him.
Yeah, because if Venus were orbiting in a full circle between us and the sun, then we would never see a full Venus.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Because we only see a full Venus when it's on the other side of the sun. So Galileo was like, nah, can't be that.
I don't think so.
Number 4. You're doing great.
Woo.
True or false? Galileo observed Neptune in 1612.
It feels very far away from what he was normally looking at. So I feel like he did not observe it.
So I feel like that's
so false.
It is true.
Oh, he did see it.
He did see it, and some ancient people saw it. If you have really good eyesight...
Couldn't be me.
Wait, no, actually that's not true. If you have really good eyesight, sometimes you can see Uranus. But other people did see Neptune. through telescopes, but they didn't realize what it was. They thought it was a star because it moves so slowly. It wasn't discovered as a planet. It wasn't realized that Neptune was a planet until 1846, so more than 2 centuries later.
Whoa. Oh, that's a long time later.
Very long time, yeah. Because it moves so slowly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last one. Galileo wrote several letters back and forth with a Jesuit priest, Christoph Scheiner, about the nature of sunspots. This is a whole thing, kind of one of the first times that he publicly, explicitly wrote a defense for heliocentrism. True or false? Scheiner believed that the sunspots were signs of God's battles against the devil.
Whoa. That I would believe. I would say true.
You would say true, wouldn't you?
I would. I've been tricked, I think.
You've been tricked. I made it up. I made that up completely. But
you would
it
have
does
fared well
sound...
back then, Moiya. You would have...
No, they would have tagged me as a witch so fast.
That's so true. But I mean, like any threatening person, you could... I feel like you could quickly find a religious justification for why they're wrong. And you're right.
You're right. I know the science and the religion. Yeah, that's completely made up. I thought that you might fall for it because a lot of people... Not a lot of people. Some people, like Johannes Kepler, did think that the sun was a personification of God.
Sure.
Like a physical embodiment of God. And, dark spots on the sun, like maybe that's because but no. Scheiner actually didn't believe that sunspots were on the sun at all because he was in the camp that believed the sun must be a perfect sphere.
Sure.
Instead, he thought they were tiny little planets between us and the sun.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah. That's Galileo. Any thoughts, questions, lingering reactions to who he was as a person?
I'm very curious about his rock star brother who's going on musical excursions.
Yes.
So he's at the festivals. But this was a great refresher of one of the most famous guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for letting me do double duty on research, or the opposite of double duty on research. Thanks for letting me use my research for something else for this.
Of course. I heard someone say feed 2 birds with 1 seed instead of kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Oh,
and I feel like
that.
that's what we did.
Yeah.
We fed 2 birds.
We did. I've heard feed 2 birds with 1 scone.
Oh, that I like more. And that's what we did here today.
Yeah, we did. Thanks. So, listeners, no matter how many foundational instruments you didn't invent, because Galileo did not invent his, remember, you're still space.
You are. Bye.
Pale Blue Pod was created by Moiya McTier and Corinne Caputo with help from the Multitude Productions team. Our theme music is by Evan Johnston, and our cover art is by Shay McMullen. Our audio editing is handled by the incomparable Misha Stanton.
Stay in touch with us and the universe by following @PaleBluePod on Twitter and Instagram, or check out our website, palebluepod.com. We're a member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. If you like Pale Blue Pod, you will love the other shows that live on our website at multitude.productions.
If you want to support Pale Blue Pod financially, join our community over at patreon.com/palebluepod. For just about $1 per episode, you get a shout out on one of our shows and access to director's commentary for each episode. The very best way, though, to help Pale Blue Pod grow is to share it with your friends. So send this episode, this link, to one person who you think will like it, and we will appreciate you for forever.
Thanks for listening to Pale Blue Pod. You'll hear us again next week.
Bye.